merciful, gracious, slow to anger, abounding in love. These four descriptors of God are revealed to us over and over again in Scripture, no less than a dozen times. Merciful, gracious, slow to anger, abounding in love. In short, these words describe a benevolent God, a God who really cares about the welfare of his creatures, a God who wants to help people succeed. In the 17th chapter of the book of Acts, the Apostle Paul tells a group of pagans about the goodness of this God, and he begins by telling them that this is the God who gives all people life, breath, and everything else. And then he goes on to say that from one man, he created every nation of people, and he determined the time set for them and the places where they should live. Paul is telling them that the true God is active in people's lives. He's kind of working behind the scenes. He's arranging things. And Paul says that he does this specifically so that people will seek him and reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. In other words, this benevolent God has kind of stacked the deck so that people will have their best chance of finding him and of knowing him, and he's just right there. He's close by. He's within reach of each and every one of us. And this deck stacking by God, this activity in our lives working to help people, is actually a picture of the grace of God, right? Patiently, lovingly revealing himself to people, arranging opportunities in our lives that really reveals God's desire that all people be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth. That's Paul's God. By contrast, the deity of Calvinism that's portrayed by Calvinism is diametrically opposed to Paul's description of God. Instead of arranging things in people's lives so that people will seek him and find him, the God of Calvinism has actually prearranged that most people will have no desire to seek him. And most people will be completely unwilling to reach out for him and completely unable to find him. And this is all by decree. And where Paul says that God is not far from each and every one of us, the God of Calvinism is actually remote, is actually hidden and completely unfindable for most people. In other words, Calvinists believe that God has predetermined that for many of the people whom we love, right, our mothers, our fathers, our husbands, wives, sisters, brothers, neighbors, friends, these people that we love are doomed by God's decree to never be able to believe, ensuring that many of those people we love will be eternally tormented. I mean, this is what prompted John Wesley to exclaim that, "Is not this such a love that makes your blood run cold?" Indeed, that's the God of Calvinism. In all honesty, I cannot and I will not worship such a cruel deity. Not only is that God not a good God, but such a deity is actually a horror and a corruption of the God of the Bible. Such a God is not worthy of worship. And, while it's certainly true that God is a just God, and so that those who reject the grace that God has provided into everybody's life to believe in him, they will certainly be judged accordingly. But, I suppose that God could have been any kind of God he wanted to be, but in the counsel of his own will, he determined himself to be a God who cannot act contrary to his nature. Merciful, gracious, slow to anger, abounding in love, right? Benevolent. A God who desires all to be saved and who actually stacks the deck to give everyone their best chance of finding him, though he is not far from each one of us. That's the picture of God presented by the Apostle Paul. And I choose to believe that Paul gets God right. So that's it. This is the second YouTube video which I've called "What's Wrong with Calvinism?" You can find the first one in the link to the first one in the description box below. And as always, I encourage you to test all things and hold fast to that which is good.